trying to make sense of the changes in my life as I crossed into my 72nd year, and things happened in my body and my mind, and not happening in my body and in my mind. and as I thought about it, I realized that that's true for all of us at all. It's as true for TJ, full of his youth and artistry and, you know, as it is for me. And all of us are being invited to embrace and face an incredibly rapid set of changes, to say the least. We knew there would be changes after January 6th. We didn't know what they would be, and we're getting a glimpse, and many people are in shock. And I'm not here to talk for or against it. You can pretty much tell where I stand on, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're all living in the same cauldron of change. And it's challenging. I belong to a group called the Spiritual Directors International, and their board released a statement that makes sense to me. It's important to take a moment to recognize the collective chaos, the fears, the grief, the anxieties, and the pains that we and others may be experiencing at this time. It's important to recognize the collective chaos, fears, griefs, anxieties, and pains that we're experiencing these times. We acknowledge that these actions also have global ramifications and are creating imminent crises and harm to individuals and community, possibly the earth herself. But it's important to reaffirm our commitment to offering and creating a space of radical inclusion and belonging, to affirm and celebrate our diverse identities is a core practice of spiritual growth. When we're not all at the table, all of us are diminished. When we present our diversity, it is a strength of who we are as individuals and a community. It's important to engage in our work collectively and collaboratively. And I think that's what we're doing here this morning. We're opening up our consciousness to the possibility of change as being an integral part of who we are, not as something to be resisted or fought or be scared of, but to recognize it is happening. We can wish it was otherwise, but this is what is. And how can we face it? How can we choose to be with it rather than being in a place of fear or anger or rage or hopelessness? How can we stand in the integrity of who we are as individuals, as a spiritual community, as a nation, as a planet, finally? So I'm going to invite you to do something with me. You don't have to. It's an invitation. This is a celebration circle. We invite, we don't command, we don't order, we don't say what's the right or wrong way. But if you'd like to spend the next 3 or 4 or 5 minutes standing with me doing an exercise, I invite you to do that. And if at any point you're standing and you want to sit down because you don't want to do it anymore, that's fine too. Okay? So, still not? Oh, okay. Thank you. So, we're standing here. Feel who you are. Just take a moment. I am Rudi. You are Susie. You are Rick. I'm here. I am powerful. I stand in my place of peace. Okay? Now, we're going to take a little trip. It's just an imaginary trip, but I invite you to take it with me. Imagine that is now 20,000 years ago, and you are standing on the open prairie, crouched behind a little mesquite bush. You're hunting. You're looking for your dinner. You're wearing nothing but a loincloth. The land is what it is. It is promising and it is generous, but it is harsh and unforgiving. You must find dinner. Now, say if you can, stay in this place. Imagine yourself vulnerable. There are no walls, no air conditioning, no layers of clothing, just you, maybe an arrow, maybe a spear, and you're looking for dinner. You're looking on the ground, see if you can find some roots, something edible to you, but you're also thinking there, just over that little rise, there might be a tasty dinner. And you know that you are hunting, but you're also being hunted. Out here on the prairie, there are things that can kill you. You're aware of that. Feel that in your body, just for a moment. Suddenly you hear a sound. A strange sound. What is it? Will you fight it? Will you flee it? Will you freeze in place, wondering, is it going to eat you? Or is it dinner? No, just let it go. Come back to me and you, standing where you are, and then have a seat if you'd like. Thank you for bearing with me. So, here's the thing. That person that you imagined yourself 20,000 years ago was living either here or not that far from here. And that person had lived in the same 50-mile radius. Very few of the people living 20,000 years ago traveled more than 50 miles in their lifetime. They might go to battle 100, 200 miles away once in a lifetime. Very rare. Mostly any battling, any fighting, any hunting and gathering was done within 50. They knew it was there. They knew the rocks, they knew the animals, they knew the environment, they knew the weather. Novel stimuli almost never happen. So when a weird noise like that came into their body system, they reacted out of a need to survive with either fight or flight or freeze. Those are basically the three choices. Those people lived in a small tribe. Maybe a few thousand years later, they lived in small towns. But they were conditioned to care about people in their tribe. Because there were only 50 of them, or 20 of them, maybe 100 of them, against all the odds and all comers from all directions. And so if one or two were down, that was a danger to the whole tribe. So they cared about each other and took care of each other. Wonderful. Fast forward to 1850. You're still in San Antonio. There are buildings, there's more clothing. But still, most of the people who lived in San Antonio hadn't traveled more than 100 miles in their lives. A few came from overseas or from the South and immigrated here. But once they got here, they didn't travel much. And again, they knew their surroundings, they knew each other, they knew what to expect of their environment, of their food, of their diet. Their diet was very limited. They had maybe 10 choices at any given time. Okay. But they still didn't have much novel stimuli in their lives. Fast forward, we'll skip the parts in between. You know how technology works. You've heard this before. But what we haven't heard, what your body hasn't gotten yet. Your body, my body, nobody, except maybe TJ, and I'm sorry, I forgot. Hugo. maybe they're wired differently. We don't know yet. We don't have the science yet. But we do know is that all of us grown-ups in here have no way of actually processing the hundreds of thousands of bits of information that are flooding our nervous system every day, day after day. And we have no way of dealing with the fact that many of those stimuli have been specifically written, programmed, filmed, and edited to seem like they're novel. So that this drink, this car, this adventure, this shoe is new, wonderful, buy it, try it. Mm-hmm. At the same time, a different kind of novel stimuli has entered our environment, and it's called news. And it's now ever present. It used to be limited to the 6 o'clock news at night, maybe the morning news if you watched both. Few people had time to watch both. But now the news is on your phone all the time. And if you're watching TV news, you're watching the news, and over the top there's more news, and underneath the bottom there's weather news, and over there's a brief flash about things that are happening in Germany, in Japan, in Nicaragua. Shock. And you are still hardwired to care for your tribe. And suddenly you're being asked to care for 9 billion people in crisis, and the planet herself, and climate change, and we don't even begin about Democrat, Republican. So, what am I trying to say? I'm saying that when we are faced with the awareness that we're overwhelmed with our fear in the face of change, which many of us face on a daily basis now. We hear there's been a new executive order. We hear that there's a new iceberg that's melted in Greenland. We hear that there's a new catastrophe in Thailand. Something is changing, and it feels in our bodies, in our caveman, cavewoman brain, we still feel like all of it's dangerous. And we are feeling diseased, uneased. And you and I are called upon on the spiritual path to collectively take a breath, be present, and be loving anyway. To wage peace anyway. To care anyway. And to acknowledge there's a whole lot of shit going on. There's a lot to be mad about, scared about. Yet I don't mean to deny it. I don't mean to. I'm not advocating being an ostrich and burying your head in the sand. I am inviting you to consider to be a living Buddha, to be a living Christ, to be a living Zen, a living Susie, a living Chuck, a living Rudi. Not the victim of anything or anyone or any circumstance, not living at the effect of change, but living as cause. Whatever your cause. Now, my particular cause, I've chosen to write this little play about aging, and my ministry, my work, my passion is now to go share it with my peers, other fellow baby boomers and older, and younger. But to talk about change and sing about it, that's my piece. And when I find myself upset and disturbed about this, that, or the other, I say, oh, there it is. And then come back to, oh, my purpose is to experience, explore, express the free flow of spirit moving to me, through me, as me now. That's my personal statement of purpose, and I express it with music and word. That's what I do. You have your own purpose and your own talent. We all do. We don't all get to have a voice like Michelle got it. But we all have that heart. And we all have that passion for something. We can fear the change, we can ignore the change, we can resist the change, we can escape the change. F-I-R-E. Fear, ignore, resist, or escape. And guess what that spells? Fire. And you get burned when that's your response to change. It's going to burn every time. And you might think you're burning them over there that are causing it with your rage. But who's burning?
Who's rage?
Yeah, right. Or my invitation to myself, just invitation to you, is to face the change, embrace the change, feel energized by the change, and dance with the change. In short, feed. I want to face, embrace, be energized by it, and dance with it to the best of my ability. And I don't know what that means. You're right. I will never know what it means hypothetically. I'm not asked to think about it, but to do it in the moment. The same way, there are some real things to be scared of in life. If someone comes at you with a gun and holds it into your face and says, your money or your life, be scared. Yeah, absolutely. That's a different kind of fear. I'm talking about the fear of being afraid about the things that are going to happen because of this executive order, because of this environmental claim, or because your boss said that. Suddenly I go into fear, like fear about fear. That's different. And that's the fear that you and I are being invited to dance with and change with. So, I'm going to invite you again to stand up with me briefly. You're not going to a scary place this time. Happy place, happy place. And if you can, unless you're wearing high heels, I don't think anybody here is, but just stand with your feet on the ground. And again, if at any point you'd rather sit down, feel free. There's no extra brownie points for suffering. Just stand. And this is a basic Tai Chi stance, posture, and move I'm going to show you. Stand with your hands cupped in front of your belly button or just below your rib cage, your solar plexus, and your left palm inside your right, or as you wish. And just feel, take a moment to feel whatever has been troubling you or anything that might be troubling you, and hold it here in your hand. Just face it. Embrace it. It might be a personal medical diagnosis. It might be something that happened in Washington, D.C. yesterday. It might be something that happened this morning. But just feel it. Hold it in your hands. And be willing to hold it without worrying about getting hurt, burned. And now, with your eyes open, just gently drop it to the ground. Just let your hands sink to the ground and let go of it. And now instead, scoop up some clean energy from Mother Earth with those same palms. Scoop it up, bring it back up to your solar plexus, up to your heart. Pour it into your heart. Ooh. And now turn your palms upward and send it out to the heavens. Oh, and now all the way down to the ground again. Get a nice big scoop of clean, fresh energy. Bring it up your body. Ooh, and wash that change out of your heart and send it up to the universe. One more time. Fresh energy. Pick it up, lift it up, filter it through your heart and send it out into the world. Okay, rest for just a minute. If you're tired of this, feel free to sit down, but we might want to do one more round. Again, your willingness to just hold in the palm of your hand any seeming challenge or change, knowing that for this moment you can't do anything about that melting iceberg, what's going on in Washington, but you can hold it lovingly in your hand without fear. Face it, and then simply let it go, let it go. And scoop up from the earth clean chi, energy. Bring it up through your body, up through your heart, out through the heaven. And one more time. Down, up, into the heart. Turn the palms up, out. And now simply stand with your hands beside your, just hanging down loosely at your side. Feel your feet standing. Feel yourself taking a stand for yourself, for love, for peace, for life. Feel your willingness to dance with the changes. May you, may we, may all beings be blessed by your willingness to do this. And so it is. Amen.